Heyo neighbors, this is Music Festivals Podcast, the show that helps you get to know popular concert venues and music festivals before you go. I'm your host, Neighbor Nate, and I'm glad you're in the neighborhood. Welcome back, neighbors, to season number 1, episode number 7 of the Music Festivals Podcast. This is the show that helps you get to know music festivals and festival venues before you go. And I am your host, Neighbor Nate. Last week, we had the chance to recap the 30th year anniversary of Acoustic Hookahville that was held out at the J&M Ranch in Ansonia, Ohio. This is one of my favorite music festivals, if not my favorite music festival of all time. If you haven't caught that episode, go back to the YouTube channel or the website, musicfestivalspodcast.com, and you can catch that episode. A lot of great interviews with our neighbors out there, great band footage. There's a venue tour of the J&M Ranch. They do a really nice job out there, so go and check out that episode. But in that episode, I actually made a claim. I made a claim that Hookahville was quite possibly the oldest festival in the country, and lo and behold, someone who was actually watching the YouTube channel, Ryan N, left a comment and pointed me to this, which I think is phenomenal. And that is the Monterey Jazz Festival that has been running for over 67 years now. And this is in Monterey, California. So I was super excited about that because I love learning things like this. And I have actually reached out to the folks at the Monterey Festival. Their festival's coming up in just a few short weeks. So I don't expect to hear back from them because I can imagine they're very, very busy right now. But if we could talk to them, this is a festival that has been around for a very long time. Now, Ryan did say that he suspects that Hookahville is the longest running festival dedicated to a single headlining band, which I thought was interesting. And he did mention that with 2 shows a year, it will probably surpass Monterey Jazz Festival from a number standpoint at some point, because this festival only happens once a year. But again, that's Monterey, California, the Monterey Jazz Festival, montereyjazzfestival.org. I will put that link in the show notes if anybody's into this. I have never been to a jazz festival, so I'm kind of excited to maybe check this one out at some point. Long travel, but you know, sometimes it's worth it to go. So for this week, we have a great show coming up. I'm going to be joined by Austin the Syd Experience, Austin Johnson and Sid Alexis, who were also out at the Hookahville and did a performance out there. And Austin's got some great stories behind why Hookahville was important to him and what it meant to actually perform at that. But you're going to hear a little bit about their style of music, which is really interesting. So more on that to come. If you are listening to the audio show on your favorite podcast app, and we are everywhere now, I've figured out how to get it all to work to make sure that we're on Apple and Spotify and Amazon Audible and all the different places you can go to get your podcasts, as well as the YouTube channel. If you're listening to that, make sure that you do head to the YouTube channel to get the visuals, because we've got a lot of venue tours and venue playlists. Or you can head to musicfestivalspodcast.com, and you can find all that there, but you can also join the official newsletter that launches in October. So go ahead and join the neighborhood, drop your email in the box. With that, you're going to get different things like lineups and performances and a little bit more exclusive content. And we've also recently started a new blog called The Campfire. So you're welcome to come sit around the campfire. And that is where we're going to house a lot of our different equipment recommendations and reviews for camping, because festival camping can be tricky. You got to be able to deal with the elements. It's not like going to a regular campground. And so I think that information is going to be helpful, especially if it's your first time ever doing this. If you're going, you're making the jump and saying, I want to go to a music festival. That's my goal with the campfire, is to help you out there. So again, we are going to get right to Austin and the Syd Experience right after this.
Lazy Jam takes place in Hartsville, Indiana. It kind of started back in 2019 was our first year. As far as attendees, we probably had about 300. We had about 230 paid, so about 300. So on the bill this year, we have One Under's going to headline Friday night, which is so awesome because they're going to play 2 long sets. We got them from 9:30 till 1 a.m. on Friday, and on Saturday night we have Pushing Daisies band, and this will be their 3rd year in a row, and those guys are just the easiest band in the world to work with, and just some great kids, and they're going to play long 2 sets. Also be here at Hookahville today, and So we have them. We have Stolen Faces out of Chicago. We have Munyon out of Chicago. We also have the Hose out of Columbus. I always say, you know, there's magic. There's magic on that land, and you know, it's magic in those trees.
So I am delighted to have some guests on the show today. I got to see Austin and the Syd Experience when I was at Hookahville last week. And arguably that was my first time seeing them play here in their set. And I'm delighted to be joined by Austin Johnson and Sid Alexis today from Austin and the Syd Experience. So thank you so much for joining the show, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I think this is super cool. You know, we got a lot of stuff to get into, but Austin, I want to start with you. So you guys, I read a little bit on your background. It sounds like you come from a very musical family. Tell me a little bit about like how you got into wanting to be a professional musician in the first place.
So I'll go way back on this one. So back in 1997, my mom was at Hookahville. Nice. And she was standing in front of Steve Sweeney, and her and my dad both, and watching them play, and they were trying to come up with a name for me, and they decided on Austin Johnson, which is kind of funny, as in, you know, Austin, Texas, one of the music capitals, and Robert Johnson. So, you know, I feel like it was meant to be in that nature. And I mean, it's safe to say that the guys from Acoustic Hookah have been a major influence on me since before I was born. But since then, I mean, my grandfather was a musician. He was a singer-songwriter. He loved people like Neil Young, Johnny Cash, just a lot of the old like singer-songwriter country guys. And then I guess I want to say at the age of about 10 years old, I had started showing interest in music, and I actually took one of my old gaming consoles and traded it in for my first electric guitar.
Oh, very cool. That's so cool.
Yeah. So basically after that, my grandpa saw that I was interested in playing music, and he showed me the first few guitar chords that I learned at the time. I think it was like a G chord and an A chord, pretty simple stuff. And then growing up, you know, we used to be around campfires all the time. I grew up with going camping with like John Mullins and a lot of the Hookah family. So I remember vividly as a kid, John used to always sing the Meatball song to all the kids, and he would sing it probably 20 times over until, you know, he would never get tired of it as many times as we wanted him to. So that was always a big influence on me. And as I got older, my uncle Brian Alton, he was a big influence as well on me. We would sit around campfires and jam acoustic guitars and just, you know, all night long. And as a kid, you know, I wasn't really, you know, I wasn't really old enough to understand like people staying up all night and partying and stuff. But like, I knew that I just wanted to play music with everybody. And that was always my favorite part about that. And
that's super cool.
So then by the age of 11, my grandpa introduced me to someone by the name of Sean Carney. And Sean's uncle was actually living next door to the house that we were staying in at the time. And my grandpa knew who Sean was. So he went next door and he's like, hey, you know, I know who you are. I have a grandson who's starting to play guitar, and, you know, I'd like you to meet him. And from there, Sean mentioned that he had a blues camp. And it was called Camp Blues. It was in Columbus, Ohio, and it was a lot of just people of all ages, a lot of kids just starting out learning how to play music, and, you know, starting out how to learn, you know, how to play the blues is a good starter because it teaches you feeling and the basics. And, you know, from then on, I took private lessons from Sean for many years, and it's safe to say he's been my musical mentor. And basically just since then, I've just, you know, just tried to hone my own style by, you know, mixing my influences together. And
so you mentioned Sweeney was a big influence on you. You've mentioned blues, a lot of that. Yes. Who else when you're playing do you kind of, you know, feel like has influenced your style?
So Steve Sweeney, of course, is my number one influence. I mean, it's hard to deny that growing up listening to him as a little kid. But the other influences that I kind of started discovering on my own and through my Uncle Brian actually is people like Jimi Hendrix, Frank Marino, Mahogany Rush, Stevie Ray Vaughan. My grandfather and I really love Stevie, and we'd always listen to him, going to blues jams and stuff around town.
Yeah.
And just like I like to say, like I've gone down the rabbit hole of Fender Stratocaster players,
Right.
people who are all influenced by Hendrix, and like and the rabbit hole goes very deep on that. There's a lot of players that were heavily influenced by him.
It sounds, listening to you though, that like the biggest influence on your life at this point has been your grandfather, right? Like
Yes.
you've mentioned that a lot.
Yes.
Why is that? Like what is it about it that has just kind of driven you into this like musical career? You know, it seems like he exposed you to a lot. So
yeah, so my grandfather, he was my best friend growing up. He came back into our lives. He lived in Arizona for a lot of his life, and he moved back to Ohio when I was 7 years old, and that was the first time I had ever met him. And we pretty much became best friends from there. And I would go everywhere with him. We'd listen to good music. He helped develop my stage attire, my outfits, and he was always kind of, I guess, just grooming me to be the musician I am today. And he was just, we would just listen to music together. He would, I just remember as a kid, if I was getting tired and passing out on the couch, from people hanging out all night and stuff, he would always be the last one playing acoustic guitar in the room, and he would play everyone to sleep. He loved it.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
He liked to call himself a romantic on the guitar, so he'd always love playing like a lot of the love songs and the real just soft spoken singer songwriter stuff.
That's awesome. Now, Syd, you had a little bit of a different upbringing. It sounds like you really started to get your chops singing in church. Tell me about you. You were in a choir, I'm assuming, or did you do solo or both, or how did that work out?
So, I grew up singing in church. I wasn't a part of a choir per se, but my mom would lead worship in church a lot. So she would call me up and I would sing, along with the praise team and stuff like that. So I did that for really as long as I can remember. But, when I started getting a little older and I started branching off on my own, I was around between the ages of 12 and 14. Those were the years where I discovered like rock and roll and just started discovering people on my own, like Austin. I got, exposed to Jimi Hendrix. I was just like, wow, this is incredible. Like, this is the coolest guy who ever existed. And, around that age, it was, I was exposed to Jimi Hendrix, David Bowie, Janis Joplin, Queen, just really, really amazing artists. And it's just like, wow, I want to be like them. You know what I mean? Like, I want to make music, but I want it to be as good as their music, or as close as I can get.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's interesting when I heard you set and I hear you sing, like I hear a lot of different influences, but I definitely heard Joplin in the growl. Sometimes you get the growl and I heard Joplin, and then yeah, it was very interesting just to hear all the mixing of styles and whatnot. So
thank you.
Yeah, you were really well received at Hookahville last year, and last weekend, and I have to show this picture because I think it's super cool. There we go. Yeah, so this is one of the pictures that was taken. I got a Facebook Marketplace message. Wonderful. One of the pictures that was taken at Hookahville that I thought was cool. But I got to ask, what's up with the fan? I've seen that like as a thing that you do. So tell me the story of the fan. What's that about?
I love fans. I collect fans. I have fans of various sizes, various styles. And this one is my favorite because it perfectly describes me. I've always been kind of extra, like my fashion influences, you know, Prince, Hendrix, Elton John, all those people, you know, their fashion, their sense of style is very, very extra.
Yeah.
And I can relate to that. Like I've always been someone who was just, I guess you would consider over the top or, you know, flamboyant or whatever, but that's always what I've gravitated towards. And that's just, it's my essence. It
That's
perfectly
awesome.
describes me in one word.
Well, this photo definitely captures that. Hats off. I'm not sure who took the photo, but I thought it was the photo of the weekend for Hookahville. And I have to mention
Oh,
too, you also Hookahville was your first time at Hookahville, but also your first time camping ever. Tell me about that. Like
yes.
how was it? How was it finally camping?
Um, Camping was fun. I never, like you said, I've never done anything like that before. I've always just been in the city and I don't get out to the country too often. And I camped all 3 days and I had a great time. Uh, Everyone there was just so loving and sweet and welcoming. And this is the first time in all 28 years that I really felt like I've connected with the audience and I feel like these are my people, you know.
That's cool.
I didn't feel like the odd one out anymore because I felt like that for years and years and I finally feel like I found a community that's just like, yep, these are my
It's amazing.
folks.
Well,
Can't forget about the stars too.
Yeah,
yeah.
I saw stars for the first time in my life at Hookahville. I'll never
That's
forget it.
amazing. Well, and that's amazing because, like, you know, we were talking before the show. We both live in the city, and you know, just a lot of it gets
Mhm.
drowned out. You don't really get to see it, but then you get out in the middle of nowhere like that, and it's
Yep.
impressive, right? So that's awesome. I'm glad you got to
It's
have those experiences. So you
it's
guys,
life changing.
yeah, we in looking at your style of music, one of the things you guys say on the website is you want to take audiences on a psychedelic journey with lyricism, visual, and vocals. So, tell me about where does that come from? Have you had your own psychedelic experiences?
I'll answer this one first. So I have. uh, Growing up in a hippie community, you know, it was kind of a thing where my mom educated me on things from you know, when I started getting to the age of like 17, 18 years old. She's like, you know, there are things at these festivals that, you know, people are going to maybe offer you, and she's like, I just, you know, want to make sure you know what it is, you know, what it does to you. And when I was 18, I was offered LSD for the first time. And you know, it was a life-changing experience. I forget which festival we were at. It wasn't at a Hookahville, but it was at one of the smaller festivals that have happened in Ohio. And I just remember just like hearing music for the first time on it, and I'm just like, wow. I could hear like every single note in detail. I can hear the way the strings ring out across the fretboard, and how the wood and the guitar resonates with the pickups. And it was just like, you know, and looking up into the sky and seeing fractals and watching
Yeah.
people live paint and the paintings come to life. And it was just like, for me, I was just like, wow. I'm
So
like,
you hear interviews with musicians, Billy Strings, that talks about it, you know, and there's tons out there where people say it changes them. Did it change you as a musician? Like, did that experience like start to alter like the way that you looked at music or how you played it?
so when I first did it, I really wasn't like, I was just starting to really start to develop my own style with music, but I wasn't fluent. I guess like the fretboard fluency is what people would call that. And honestly, like whenever I would try to play music while under the influence, the guitar kind of intimidated me a little bit, because like
Okay.
I kind of, when I'm in that state of mind and I try to play music, it's like um you kind of like, with psychedelics, you kind of forget everything, you know, a little bit. Like not really, but all, like when I pick up the guitar, I'm like, you know, kind of, I just drew a blank with it. I was like, wow. But once I was kind of able to tap into it more, I kind of discovered with that blank, it gets you out of, like, for me, it has helped me get out of like ruts musically. So it's like, you get used to playing the same licks in the same way in the same style, or you get caught up in trying to play like somebody else when your influences and stuff like that. But the first time I really connected with it while playing music, I sat with my guitar. I was at home. I sat with my guitar for like 8 hours, and I just played and played and played, and it just like, it broke me out of the rut that I was in at the time. And I was just like, wow. I was like, it allowed me to, I don't know, like, some people don't need it. And I won't say that like I needed it to get to that point. I'm sure I would have gotten to that point eventually, but it definitely opened my mind up to all the possibilities of the guitar. The guitar no longer looked like a box. Like, I was able to actually break out of the box and realize why certain notes combined with other notes well, and make how those notes make up different chords, and all that kind of stuff. It was really just kind of, and then for anyone who hasn't done it, taking LSD and listening to Jimi Hendrix, that will absolutely blow your mind, because I mean, like, he lived in that state of mind for the most part. So it's like, listening to the Axis the first time, I was just like, I remember like listening to it, I'm like, wow, all these parts, all these different parts, all these different sounds, they're all guitar.
Yeah.
Like, so, for me, before I became like more technical with my playing, I was very interested in sound and getting just different sounds out of the guitar that aren't attached to fretting a note, like different feedback sounds and different, pedal combinations of, creating different delays. And that I was very interested in that stuff before I actually became more fluent with the fretboard.
Okay. So you guys formed Austin and the Syd Experience in the summer of 2022, and you have your own brand of music. And it seems like that's the thing to do these days, is to create a brand of music. And yours is acid funk. Tell me a little bit about what is acid funk? What is the brand of music that you guys are building?
So, acid funk, it's a play on both of our names. A for Austin and then Syd, so it's acid. And then well, I mean, when you put acid up against something, more often than not, it's going to melt it. So we kind of like to dissolve all these types of genres together. Our favorite genres, funk, rock and roll, soul music, all of it, and it just becomes acid funk. It's like just a play on words, but it worked out. And we actually came up with that name last September. We were doing we were part of a battle of the bands in Dayton, and the winning band got to perform at Ohio Dreamfest this year. So I came up to Austin. I'm just like, what do you think about acid funk? He's like, yeah, I like it. That's cool. That works as a play on words with our names, and it's something that we can call ours. So yeah, that's how it came to be.
But you mentioned, I like what you said there, that it melts a lot of different things together to create a sound. And I did hear a lot of the fusion of that. There was everything from more classic rock sound to funk to gospel almost a little bit in some of the vocals and whatnot. And I really enjoyed that about you guys. You're in the stage of being a band now where you're getting out there, right? So do you consider yourself a festival band right now? Is that where you're trying to go for the at least short-term future, is to hit the festival circuit hard? You mentioned winning a competition and getting to Dreamfest, which is a larger festival in Ohio. So yeah, where are you guys going with that?
So yeah, we're like kind of basically, I had a vision. I'll take it back a little bit. So when I first started playing, I used to have this vision because I grew up in the hippie scene. But then what got me into playing live is playing in the blues scene, and going out and playing with my mentor, Sean Carney. And so like in that kind of, he introduced me to the world of playing on a stage, playing live music, and actually being the front man to a band. And so I always had this vision. I'm like, well, I'm from the jam band scene. I grew up, that's where all my extended family and friends are from. And then I also have a following in the blues circuit. So I was like, how can I combine these two worlds together? Because, each scene is incredible in itself. And so it's like, I wanted to figure out really how to combine the two. And that's hence what we're kind of doing with this band is, with in the blues scene, you get a lot of people, you get like artist names, like individual artist names. You don't see a lot of band names in the blues scene, but you see band names in the jam band scene. So I wanted to kind of play with the words Austin the Syd Experience. It kind of promotes itself to both crowds in a way.
Yeah.
And I mean, so with the festival circuit, I really love the festival circuit because, it just, people are very into the music. They're there to watch the music. They're there to dance. They're just there to have a great time. And for a long time, I played a lot of clubs around the blues circuit, traveling all across the nation, playing with another act. And the clubs were awesome. I really enjoyed them. But my favorite shows were always the festivals.
Yeah.
Because that's where you get the bigger crowds. It's where you get like real crowd interaction. You're playing at a sports bar, people are watching TV and they're not really watching the band.
Yeah.
So it's like the festivals for me, they've always just been like very inviting to live music. That's what they're based around. So I mean, our goal right now is pretty much to be a festival band, to be playing a lot of these festivals around Ohio, and I know there's other festivals outside of Ohio that happen too. So we're really just trying to expand our expand our band to the point where we can be playing mostly festivals with clubs, as like, when we do eventually hit the road and tour. Clubs are good for like tour stops going in between cities and stuff, and you get to play the bigger festivals that help bring everything together, and so that's kind of, I guess, what my vision on everything was, and still is.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about what you said too. Is so you guys are still in the stage where you're probably, tell me a little bit about how you travel. How do you get the band from one place to another? Because if you're especially on a tour, you might have 2 weeks of festivals and then a stop in between or a stop in the middle of the week. So logistically, like, how do you plan for that travel? How does it work for you guys?
So right now, with us being a newer band, we haven't gotten to tour with this specific band yet. But I've been in a touring band before, where basically we'd get in the van, we'd have like a set festival that we're traveling to, say out on the East Coast, out in like Maine, Cape Cod, like all the way out there, and that would be like a major festival. And then in between the festival and home, you book clubs, and some of your favorite clubs you like to play at. And a lot of the ones I played at were along the historic blues circuit, which all the blues artists for many generations have been traveling and playing at. Some of those same clubs are still on that circuit. So there's something to be said about those old juke joints too, because I mean, you just walk into the place and you can just feel the energy from them.
That's cool. That's cool. Syd, out of the places you performed, what sticks out in your mind? Where's been the experience that you've liked the most so far?
I mentioned ComFest earlier, the community festival in Columbus, Ohio. That was one that I had actually started attending as a teenager because my dad has worked it for over 20 years. So I attended my first ComFest when I was 19. And then the following year, I started a business with my sister, and we made clothing. So we sold our clothing at ComFest. And this past year, we got to play our first ComFest, and that was awesome because it was just like a homecoming for me.
Okay.
And we were highly anticipated there because, I know everybody out there. I know everybody on that circuit. They watched me grow up. So it was just like, it was a really sweet and like awesome moment to be able to be a part of that. It was an honor. And another one, Hookahville was awesome. I know like Hookahville has a lot of sentiment for Austin, but to be able to play with him at this festival that he was basically conceived at. Again, getting to share that experience with him was awesome, because it's just like, I know what it means to him. And when we met, he told me about Hookahville. I'm just like, oh, that sounds fun. But
Yeah.
I didn't know that we were going to end up playing it, let alone together as a band. So yeah, that was awesome.
That's awesome. Now, Austin, you as either a musician or an attendee, what are some standout festivals that you've been at either recently or just the ones that people should know about?
So the main one for me is obviously Hookahville. Me growing up there as a little kid, I always had the dream of being on the stage and playing for everybody there, because everyone in that scene watched me grow up. They watched me. They've known me since before I was playing music and playing guitar. They knew me since I was a little kid, sleeping in front of the PA speakers while my mom danced all night. And so coming from that and growing up in the scene and being influenced by all the guys in acoustic hookah, I mean, to be able to finally play at Hookahville was like it was like coming full circle for me.
That had to be like something really special.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of like my family and friends like have seen me play throughout the years, but they haven't seen me with my own band playing in a place that I call home. And so it was just a big honor to be able to get on the stage, and because like I can walk around Hookahville and I know every person there. So it's like getting to be on the stage and playing for every person there that I know and that all care about me dearly. It was just it was very sentimental, and it was just it was the best feeling for me. And so I mean, with that's probably my favorite festival and favorite event that I've played to date. Some of the other highlights of my career so far has been ComFest the Syd. That was a fun one. And then one of my other events that I've played in a different band is Milwaukee SummerFest, which is arguably probably the biggest festival or one of the biggest in the world. I mean, they have 13 stages. They draw 100,000 people a day to this festival. I mean, everybody, like the festival was so like the bill was so big with main name acts that like the band I was playing in wasn't even on the poster because there's so many big names already on the poster.
This is, I mean, it's unbelievable the scale of this festival. I started looking this up when you guys mentioned it, and it is just incredibly huge.
And like I was playing with this guy named Harper, and just for an example, while we were playing, Steely Dan was playing on another stage at the same time, and 21 Pilots was playing on another stage at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's just like to just give a reference of how big that festival truly is. It's just like you can't even believe you can walk for 2 miles and just find just stages every couple of yards. And it's just like of every different genre too. Like we're playing kind of, I guess, world roots in that band, and we opened up for Shaggy, the rapper. So world
crazy.
roots opening up for a rapper. So that was, it's just a very interesting mix of music and lineups at that place, and it was just it was mind-blowing, to be honest. Just
it seems like this is in that category of your Bonnaroos, your more generalized. Even Nelsonville Music Fest is like covering a lot of different genres, a lot of different types of performances. So like it would make sense that it's that big because you've got so many different audiences coming together. But what a great place to like experience different music.
Exactly. And it was just like being able to it's interesting because at like some of a lot of the other festivals I've played at, you get a consistent crowd. They come to the stage, they watch you for the whole set because that's that you're the main act that's playing. But at Milwaukee, there's so many different headliner acts that are playing at the same time that it's just like you have a consistent crowd, but it's just the crowd is constantly changing throughout the set.
Yeah.
It's like it's full and your crowd is full, but like, you know, people are constantly just walking in and out. Some people will leave, some people, and then the next couple people will take those seats. And it's just,
Yeah.
so it was just an amazing thing for exposure and get to play in front of a very just diverse crowd of music lovers.
I know at the big festivals, one of the first things you do is you sit down and do agenda planning, right? Like, let's look at everything.
Exactly.
Okay, here's where we're going. We're going to have to get from here to there, and it's going to be a long walk, you know? So
I couldn't even imagine just being an attendee to that festival.
yeah.
I think it's like 3 weeks long.
Yeah.
So it's like being an attendee, you have to choose the specific weekend that you want to go, plan everything around it, and it's just it's crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to show people that of what you guys have coming up too. So your season's not done. We're coming up. I think it looks like things start to really wind down. Like November is the last festival I was able to find in Ohio. But you guys have some stuff coming up. So obviously Lazy Jam next weekend. That's out in Hartsville, Indiana. I will see you guys out there. We had OJ do a video on the show last week, and I've been trading Facebook messages with him. So I'm excited to get out there. Syd, this is your birthday party, yeah? Like
at the Ramblin' House.
Yeah. So tell us about the gigs you guys got coming up.
Yeah. So after Lazy Jam, our next Columbus event is going to be at the Ramblin' House in Columbus, Ohio, and that's my birthday weekend.
Awesome.
And I'm excited for that. It's going to be a fun time.
That's very, very cool. And then so that's at Rambling House, and that's Friday the 27th. And then we've got Harvest Days. That's another festival out in Newark. I've actually not heard. And you guys are going to be there with Hookah again, so they're making the rounds this year too. So have you been to this one before, Harvest Days?
I have not actually. So I know a friend of mine, Sam, puts this on, and he's Laughing Sam Productions is, I believe, his company name that's putting it on, and it's I know he's thrown on other events called like Festivus and stuff like that around the jam scene. This is the first. I mean, I could, you know, I haven't seen any other ones personally. It doesn't mean there hasn't been past events, but this is the first Harvest Days that I've personally seen, and Dave Katz hit me up a few months, like about, I don't know, like 2 months ago or something like that, and asked us to be a part of it. And it was an honor for him to, you know, hit me up and ask us to be a part of it, because we had our first show with him was at the Bluestone back in March, which I'll mention that was another highlight show of us.
Playing at the Bluestone, yeah.
Cool. But so the Harvest Days thing, it's at a new venue from what I can see. I haven't been to this venue. It's like Roost on the River out in Newark, and it looks like a really cool venue. I was looking at some pictures, and it looks like it's a big space and a good stage, and I think you're allowed to stay all night.
That's awesome.
People have to leave until noon the next day, which is, you know, pretty cool. People can hang out, have, you know, sit around a fire for the night, jam acoustic guitars and stuff like that. So and being on the bill with Acoustic Hookah is awesome. And
Zoo Tripping too. Zoo Tripping I've seen a couple times. They're pretty good.
Yeah, they're good too. So it was cool that Dave hit us up about that. It just looks like a really cool event, and we're very excited about it.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. So for next season, are you guys already thinking ahead in terms of, you know, like I said, things will wind down probably at the end of November. There's indoor gigs, you know, in the winter, but where do you want to take the band for the next summer, and what are kind of some goals that you guys have?
Well, I know we've been working extremely hard on new music. And while festival season, probably gig season winds down, we'll probably be rolling out more and more new music. We've been hitting that pretty hard. And so, I don't want to say slowly but surely, but, you know, we're aligning new original music, and we're feeding that into our sets. Each set we play, we recently, like the last couple sets that we've done, we've added at least 3 new songs.
Okay.
So that's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hats off to you guys for really, creating an experience that I thought was super cool.
Thank you.
And clearly you're getting, I think I'm not the only one. People who've seen you play recently, I sleuthed on your social medias. Everybody has great things to say about Austin the Syd Experience. So thanks for
Oh,
doing what you're doing.
That's so nice to hear.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, Austin
Yeah,
Johnson, Sid Alexis, Austin and the Syd Experience. All the show notes will be down into
cool.
we'll put links and everything to your reference. I got the YouTube channel on there and stuff. And hats off to you guys. Thanks very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much for this. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Nate.
Cheers. Alrighty, neighbors, that's it for this week's show. Again, thanks to Austin and Syd for sharing their stories. Super fun conversation with those guys, and I wish them the very, very best as they plan for next season. You can check out their website at austinandthesydexperience.com, and those will be in the show notes as well. And visit the YouTube channel. They're just at Austin and the Syd Experience on YouTube. A lot of great videos there. We're going to go out with one here in just a second. If you do like what you're watching or listening to, please go ahead and subscribe. You can find all the places to do that by simply visiting musicfestivalspodcast.com. Leave your email in the box if you want to join the neighborhood. Check us out on YouTube and download the audio on wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're on those networks, go ahead and rate the show. Any good ratings help us get this out there, so I appreciate if you do that. Music Festivals Podcast is a production of NRMedia Group. That's my day job. And as always, I am your host, Neighbor Nate, and I hope to be your neighbor at the next festival. And we are going to let Austin and Syd just take us on out.